Hi, I did not see you there. My name is Zach, Dolphin Whisperer, Nigerian Prince, game reviewer extraordinaire. Now I look smart. Now, I have been playing a game since late 2015, and I have not put it down since. I have sunk 75 plus hours into it, and still have not gotten bored. What few games can do that? Well, one of them is what I'm reviewing today. It is called Fallout 4, the most hyped game of 2015, and in my opinion, it is deserving of the hype. So, before we get started with the review, I would like to go over how I score games on this show. I have listed on a computer off screen here that you cannot see many different points about the game, different ideas, different concepts that made it into the game, and I have given them up to 3 points, positive or negative. At the end of the video, they will be tallied up, add all the positives, subtract all the negatives, and then we'll be given the final score of the game. So, let's begin with Fallout 4. The first point that I gave it is that it has bad graphics. In Fallout 4, people have said that it looks beautiful, people have said that it looks like a can of garbage on fire. And in my personal opinion, while it may not be a can of garbage on fire, it is getting dangerously close to being a can of garbage on fire. Graphics can look downright ugly at times. Characters such as Mama Murphy does not look appealing in the least. Nor does it look realistic, which is clearly what this game has been trying to go for. However, there have been some exceptions to this rule, such as different outfits definitely look grimy like they're supposed to, and it all looks well. But in terms of the actual general universe and things that you'll be paying attention to, the graphics can look pretty bad and downright ugly at times. The second point is that it has bad performance. The game, while it does maintain a good frame rate and keeps it smooth throughout the entire game, I rarely experienced any drops in the frame rate. There have been several times that the game has hard crashed on me. I play on an Xbox One, so it's a little bit frustrating when I have to get booted back to the dashboard just because I wanted to walk into a building. There have been times that I've tried to walk into a building, and then during the loading screen, I just get booted back to the dashboard. There was one mission in particular in which I had to board a vertibird, and every time I did this, for 4 times in a row, I got booted back to the main menu. The 5th time, however, for no reason, changing nothing, it worked flawlessly. It was a little bit frustrating, and it annoyed me to no end. The performance of this game is nothing to turn up your nose at. It's not the most impressive thing in the world. The third point, we're getting into some positives here. It has a compelling story. The story is the polar opposite of that of Fallout 3. Its spiritual predecessor, and technical predecessor if you want to get technical with how the whole production schedule worked out. But the story is compelling. The character that you play as, Nate or Nora, are the default names for the male and female protagonists. You, your spouse, and your infant child, Sean, are suddenly thrust from your calm pre-war life into nuclear fallout. Thrust into Vault 111, where, supposedly, you're getting checked for vitals, when you get frozen for 200 years. You find that your son has been kidnapped by mysterious people, and as soon as you get out of the vault, your first order of business is to find him. Throughout the entire game, while there is something about the story that I'll get to in a later point, the story, for the most part, is very compelling and keeps you wanting more throughout the entire game, wanting to know what happens next and wanting to know where you will go next. After that, we have multiple factions with multiple endings. There are 4 factions you can side with, one of which is kind of a secret, so I won't spoil it for you here. The first 3 I will talk about, however, as 2 of them are kind of obvious, and one of them, while you do have to look for it, it's nothing spoilery. The first is the Minutemen. This is the first faction that you'll encounter in the game, likely, unless you travel very far off the beaten path at the start of the game. It is the Minutemen, led, when you meet them, by a man named Preston Garvey, who has been made into an international meme based on his constant beratement of wanting you to help settlements. But this faction is mainly focused on helping everyone, of the people for the people. You want to help every person in the Commonwealth, whether they are a human, a ghoul, a synth, a mutant, whatever. The second is the Brotherhood of Steel. The Brotherhood of Steel is morally, to most people, terrible. They hate anything that is not a person, and they hate technology falling into the wrong hands. If you side with them, however, you do get some nice perks, which I'll talk about later. The third is called the Railroad, named after, clearly, the railroad back in Harriet Tubman times, for lack of a better term. The Railroad helps synths that have escaped an evil group called the Institute, and helps them to start a new life as a normal person, as they believe they do not deserve to be suddenly killed or kidnapped because of what they are, because of course they cannot help. And again, the fourth faction is a bit of a secret. I won't spoil it here for you. So, the next point is that there are less weapons in the game. There are less base weapons in the game. Well, by that, what I mean is, when I say less, the baseline is its predecessors Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. There were a lot of weapons in those games. You could pick up a lot of things, like from a shovel to a 10mm pistol to a minigun. You can pick all those things up and use it as a weapon effectively. In Fallout 4, there are less base weapons. But this is countered by the next point, which is that modifications have taken a much bigger form in the Fallout game. In this game, there are workbenches scattered around the Commonwealth, where you can take your weapons and you can modify them, give them scopes, barrels, increase their receivers, increase their damage, make them fully automatic. Basically anything that you would possibly want with these workbenches. You modify your weapons, you modify your armor. You can basically turn anything into anything. Certain weapons you can change the ammo type that they use. Certain weapons you can increase the damage, certain weapons you can make the ammo capacity much larger. Whatever you want. The next is that, a very big positive for me, is that soon there will be mods coming to the Xbox One, and presumably the PS4. By mods, I mean you'll be able to go on to something along the lines of the Steam Workshop, and you can download different mods that modify the game in different cool ways. I've seen mods that change the dialogue system, I've seen mods that add cool weapons, mods that change certain visuals in the game, and a few mods that change the entire intro to the game. Very impressive, and finally, console players like myself will get an opportunity to venture into the world of mods. The next point is that there are legendary enemies in the game. While randomly traveling throughout the Commonwealth, you may find an enemy labeled as legendary with a star next to their name. These enemies, while they are much harder, and they have essentially 2 of their own health bar, they have a very special reward if you beat them, which I'll get to later. In fact, I can get to that right now. These legendary enemies drop legendary weapons. These are random weapons. Any weapon in the game can be like this, and they can have a bunch of different prefixes that change how the weapon works. For example, one of my favorites is called Plasma Infused. It means that whatever the weapon is, it does 10 more damage per shot in energy damage, and has the ability to turn enemies into goo. Melee weapons can have a prefix called Wounding, which means that enemies bleed. This can be put on something like a sledgehammer, and you get confused because how could a blunt weapon like a sledgehammer make someone bleed in a game like this? But it doesn't matter, it can happen, and it's incredible. The next point is that there are a lot of difficulty settings. There is very easy, medium, normal, words, hard, very hard, and survival. At the moment, on consoles, and I believe PC as well, I believe that the new survival mode is still in its beta, survival mode is still just essentially a very, very hard mode. It's not quite the survival mode that everybody wants from Fallout 4, but it will be there soon. So you can play on a very easy difficulty setting, and you can basically take no damage from anything and deal all of the damage to everything. You can play on very hard or survival, and you can have a challenge. But either way, the game is always a blast. And speaking of this new survival mode, the new survival mode will be coming soon to Fallout 4. It's already in beta. Some YouTubers have been playing it on their channels. The new survival mode will feature things like rather than just requiring eating and drinking. If you don't eat or drink, your action points will be reduced. Their maximum value will be reduced greatly. The only way to save is to sleep in beds. And if you don't sleep for a long period of time, you will experience getting drowsy, and you'll suffer the effects from that. And there's no more fast travel in survival mode, so if you want to go all the way back to your good home Sanctuary, if you're anywhere that's not in the top left corner of the map, you're going to have quite the walk ahead of you. Next up is that the leveling system has, as many have put it, it's been streamlined. Now, this is one of these special points in this show, where it's really up to you whether this gets a positive point or a negative point. The fact that it's streamlined can be a good or a bad thing, so add a point or subtract a point based on these points that I will give you now. It may be a good thing, because if you're new to RPGs, if you've never really been one for intensive character building, you can adapt much easier to Fallout 4. It's much more of a open, friendly game to newcomers, as opposed to being something like Fallout 3 or New Vegas, where you have to really be familiar with the franchise to be effective in it. It could be negative, however, if you do enjoy the intensive character building and you really want to be able to invest different skill points into different things, and all of those types of things. So, it can be positive or negative. I personally think that's positive, because it just makes it simpler for everyone, regardless of whether you like simple or not. So, the next is that the special system is back. SPECIAL. This is a test of your 7 base stats in the game. Strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck. In the start of the game, when you build your character, you have 21 points to distribute into these evenly, getting them on a scale of 1 to 10. Different skills lie down different skill trees of the different special stats. For example, if you want to do more accurate shots in bats, you may need more perception. If you want to modify your weapons more effectively, you may need higher intelligence. Figuring out what each of these different skills you want are is one of the more fun parts of the game, in my opinion. The next is that the simplified perk chart in this game. And this is also a debatable point based on how you feel about it. The perk chart is much easier to understand. To some this is good, to some this is bad. It may be good because if you do not really understand how RPGs work, it can be beneficial for you to be able to just read this and see, okay, this perk, if I take this rank of this perk, it will increase my damage with rifles by this much percent. Or this will make it so that I can pick more advanced locks. To others, they prefer the skill point system of the earlier 2 games, where investing points into different skills with the points that you earn at each level can increase your skills in milestones. For example, every 25 points into a lockpick skill would increase your ability to pick more advanced locks. Some people prefer this, some people don't. I personally would prefer the simplified perk chart. The next few points will be very negative in my opinion, because this whole idea was very integral to the game. They advertised it so much, and it was very lackluster when it was finally shown off. And that is the base building. The base building was done very, very poorly in my opinion. There are very bad hitbox issues. If you want to put that cool Nuka-Cola machine in the corner of your new red rocket house, good luck, because there's rubble on the ground that you can't get rid of. You're not going to have any luck getting it anywhere other than the middle of the room where it looks derpy. No one wants it like that. Another negative about this is that there is no dedicated tutorial. For example, did you know that you can link out different settlements so that the items in their workbenches can go to either settlement? And you can make it so that traders go to and from those different settlements? You probably didn't, because it's hidden within a bunch of different menus with no real tutorial. It feels like it was really just thrown in at the end of development just to check off a box. So the next is that, finally back into some positives, there are multiple companions, traveling partners that can help you out in combat. You can develop relationships with them. There's romancing in this game for Mass Effect people. But there are many different companions for you to travel with. From the Minuteman leader, Preston Garvey, to your trusty robot companion, Codsworth, to the awesome sharpshooter, MacCready. The next is that there are a lot of side stories. What I mean by this is that you can stumble across some random thing and run into an entire quest line. One example of this is a place called Cabot House. At Cabot House, you show up and there's 3 people that, there's a scientist that's focused on aliens, there's a security guard, and his mom. And the scientist sends you off on a bunch of missions to prove the existence of aliens. But as you progress through this, different things start to happen, and you figure out that, spoiler warning if you care about this questline at all, you can just skip a little bit further, that the father has some sort of alien artifact in his head, and it's messed with him, and now he's a crazy evil maniac. So you can just stumble across this by accident, which is incredible to me. The next is that there are unique weapons again. I cannot tell you the satisfaction of finding a unique weapon in the middle of a random cave. Unique weapons in this game behave differently than they used to, as opposed to just being a name variant of a weapon. These weapons they come with different attachments, they come with their own modifiers, and they can be found in random different locations across the Commonwealth. However, a negative point in my head, not exactly counted on the chart, but that kind of keeps it from getting another point, is that a lot of them now can be purchased. Not with real currency, not like micro DLC, no. But some of the more powerful ones are just, you find them at a vendor and they cost like 30,000 caps to get. Which seems like a bit of a cop-out. But a lot of them can be found out in your adventures. For example, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it is French for the Terrible Shotgun, which is a unique shotgun from Fallout 3. You can find that in this game. And it does more limb damage, but has more recoil than other shotguns. You can decide if that's something that you would feel good about using. If not, still collect it. You can sell it if you want to. You can collect them like I prefer to do. In my house, in Fallout 4, I have an entire bin filled to the brim with unique weapons. The next is that there are multiple outfits. There are a whole ton of outfits for your character to wear in the game. You can find different tuxedos that increase your charisma. You can find trench coats that increase your perception. Lab coats that increase your intelligence. All of these different things. And another cool thing about the outfits in this game are that you get modular armor. As opposed to in previous Fallout games, where you find a suit of leather armor and you put it on and it's just leather armor. In Fallout 4, you can find undergarments, like a t-shirt and jeans, or like a flannel shirt, or a vault jumpsuit. And then you can find chest pieces, arms, and legs. And the right and left arm are separate, and the right and left leg are separate. So you can find, like, you could have a combat armor left arm, a leather right arm, synthetic chest piece, all of these different things, all working all at once. And there is unique armor in the game as well, which I forgot to put on here, but there's different armor that gives you different benefits, such as slowing down time when you get to a certain increment of health. Now, another positive to most people, or another negative to most people, sorry, is that the dialogue system has been very watered down. The dialogue in this game has gone from what it was in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, where you get the entire list of things you can say, and your character, while not voice acted, just says those exact lines. Theoretically. Again, there's no voice actor, but that's what the person that you're talking to would hypothetically hear. So if you were to say, "Hi, how are you?" they would say, "Oh, I'm good." Rather than now, it's just 4 options, and they generally consist of be nice, be mean, be sarcastic, or ask for information. So it's really watered down. You never quite know what your character is going to say. For example, if you wanted to say, if you came across some sort of a super mutant, and they said, do you want to travel with me? If you said no, normally in Fallout 3 you could see that, hey, if I say this, I'm gonna say no, and then I'm gonna say something really offensive to him to make him want to kill me. And this, you just see the word no, and then if you press the B button to say the word no, suddenly your character says something really weird and offensive, and then suddenly a super mutant wants to beat you in the face with a sledgehammer. Not a fun time. Now, like in Skyrim, the main story of this game can really get lost behind all of the different things that there are to do in the game. Now, this can be seen as positive, because, I mean, that just means that there's tons and tons of stuff to actually do in the game. But some can be seen as a negative because it draws away from what you're supposed to be doing. But, a good example of this is we first show up to Diamond City, the main hub in the game where you go to do all of your trading, anything that you would really want to do. You can show up there, and then suddenly you have a guy asking you to go find a baseball bat for you, and then you've got some chick telling you to go find a robo-detective in a vault over there, and you're going off and you're doing all of these missions, and you're like, hey, aren't I supposed to be looking for my infant son that got kidnapped after my wife got shot in the face? Nah. And you just kind of forget about the entire main story. So it's something that can be seen as positive, something that can be seen as a negative. I personally see it as positive because it just really immerses you more into the world, in my opinion. So the next positive point is that there is well done progression. The progression in this game is done incredibly. Certain levels of perks are locked behind different levels, by which I mean you cannot get every rank of the rifleman perk to increase your rifles to increase your damage with rifles. You cannot get all of those consecutively and suddenly you're doing double damage with rifles at level 5. That's not how it works. For example, rank 1 of every perk in the game you can get whenever you want. You can get that as the first perk in the game if you want to. But then they start to get locked off behind different levels. For example, level 1 of the rifleman perk, you can unlock that right away. Level 2 might be locked behind level 7. So once you get to level 7, you've got a perk to look forward to. You've got something that you can look forward to getting. So, and it does this with every perk in the game. So you really get that sense of accomplishment when it's like, okay, if I level up one more time, I can go to this building, I can pick that lock, I can get that cool thing in that room. But for now, I can't because I'm not high enough level. You really get that, like, drive to level up your character. Next thing is that while melee weapons in the game are still very effective, and they have been given their own speeds, and which to me makes sense because there are weapons that have very fast speeds like chainsaws, normal fast speeds, I don't know how to talk, like a switchblade, medium like a baton, and slow like a sledgehammer. They swing at different speeds. You can't just swing a sledgehammer as fast as you would swing a knife. That is not how science works. But melee combat is made much more difficult by the fact that even characters that are using guns can still effectively block you by using gun bashing, which is much faster than any other weapon that you're going to use in the game. For example, if I saw a guy standing there and they had a gun, and I was like, okay, I can just run up on them with a baseball bat, and then I can hit them and they can't really do anything about it. They're going to get staggered, I'm just going to be able to lay into them. You run up to them, and then they bash you with their gun, and suddenly you can't do anything. And taking any damage at all interrupts your melee attacks. So it makes melee combat in general much less effective, in my opinion. There's a new thing that was added. It existed in mods in Fallout 3 New Vegas for a very, very long time. But it's finally been added, canonically, I guess you could say, that you can sprint at the cost of AP. What this means is that your action points are used to use VATS, which is a super awesome, like, pinpoint targeting system. But you need action points to actually use attacks in VATS. However, if you don't really like to use VATS, you can sprint into combat, and you have less action points to work with in VATS, but you got into combat more quickly. Finally, we can sprint. That's just something that people have wanted in the game forever. So it's finally in the game. Next up is that with VATS, the targeting system I was just talking about, in previous games, it would freeze time, and you would get to kind of sit there, and you would just see like that raider that's pointing a gun at you, and it's kind of sitting there, and you can highlight parts of their body and decide to shoot at those. But a welcome change, at least in my opinion, is that now it doesn't freeze time, it actually just slows it down to a crawl. So things can still happen, you can still get hit and killed in VATS. There's been a very big thing in Fallout 3 New Vegas called VATS defense that people use a lot, where if you're about to get shot with something like a mini-nuke, if you see a mini-nuke coming over the horizon, people would just go into VATS, and then they would kind of take a moment to kind of catch their breath, assess the situation, and go from there. They call this VATS defense. In this game, while it does still exist to a degree, it is not nearly as effective, and I think that it makes the game more balanced. It makes it less of a cheese tactic. Next is that this has been in the games, sort of, but now you can customize the HUD and Pip-Boy colors of like the dialogue menus and all of the menus in the Pip-Boy and all that, and the pause menu on a sliding RGB scale. So if you just wanted to have it like a nice pink color like I chose, because pink is cool, you can just you can move around these sliders and suddenly you've got a nice color that you can use. It really makes things more personal. The next point is that all of the junk in the game is useful. In Fallout 3 New Vegas, you would come across something like Wonder Glue, and you're just like, oh, that's just Wonder Glue. What am I going to do with that? That seems pointless. It's just a thing that you can pick up just because why not? In Fallout 4, if you see something like a Wonder Glue, if you don't pick it up, you're stupid, because you need all this stuff for crafting. You can craft weapons, you can craft armor, you can craft settlements, all of that stuff. So all of the junk in the entire game is useful to a degree. The next point is that exploring the Commonwealth is just fun. For example, one time on my high-level character where I've beaten the game, I've done basically any side quest that I wanted to that would be worth it, I just chose a direction where I didn't have that many map markers, and I just walked in it for an hour and a half, and I did not get bored. I constantly found new locations, fought different enemies, found more lore, made it more fun. Exploring the Commonwealth is just a fun thing to do. The next is that there are tons of different fun encampments and settlements in the game, where there are tons of interesting characters. One of my favorites is that you can find a little town called Goodneighbor. It is the city of freaks, as people like to put it, where anybody that's not human goes, basically. There are humans there. That's a city of refuge for things like ghouls, ghouls, robots, synths, all that stuff. People like that just go there, and they're safe. Goodneighbor is of the people, for the people, as they say there. And while you're there, you meet the mayor of the town called Hancock. He is a ghoul and a drug addict, and he is incredible. You should always travel with him because he's awesome. He has a cool pirate outfit, and he just runs around talking trash at everybody that he sees because he's awesome. Hancock is awesome. You should travel with Hancock. Why are you not traveling with Hancock right now? Go travel with Hancock. Don't have Fallout 4, go out there and buy it right now because it's incredible, and don't go travel with Hancock. Right now. Next, that there are characters returning to this game from previous Fallout games. One of the prime suspects is MacCready. Now, in Fallout 3, you can find a little place in a cave called Little Lamplight. It's a city of children. Everybody in the city is a kid. And you can meet Mayor MacCready. And he's a cool guy. Kinda, even though he wants to kill you because you're an adult. It's like, kids rule forever. But, you go into Goodneighbor, and you meet this guy named MacCready. And once you do enough of his missions, and once you earn enough affinity with him, he tells you that he used to be the mayor of a town called Little Lamplight. Mayor MacCready is all grown up, and he made his way to the Commonwealth to travel with the sole survivor. It's really cool to see a lot of returning faces. A few of them are a little bit spoilery, so I won't get to them now, but yeah. So the next point is that you can customize your power armor in this game. Previously, power armor was just a really good suit of armor. Like you find power armor, it's like, okay, this has got really good damage resistance. Looks cool, I'll wear this. And then suddenly you're just walking around in power armor. In Fallout New Vegas, in Fallout 4, it is much, much different. In Fallout 4, you have to use fusion cores, which power the power armor. sounds weird, powers the power armor. And then the different pieces of power armor, such as both of the arms, both of the legs, the chest piece, and the helmet, can get damaged. And then you have to go and repair them. And you can also upgrade them with different lights. You can upgrade the torso with a jetpack. Yada yada yada. Okay, next up on the list is that ammo in this game is a lot more plentiful. When you are looking around the Commonwealth, even when you're using something like an automatic weapon, you're never really going to be aching for ammo, unless you're very early in the game using something like a 45 weapon. And by that I mean 45 caliber, not 45 different weapons. That'd be really weird, but also awesome. Anyway, you're not really going to be aching for ammo at any point in the game, especially not in the late game, because then you've basically just got 75,000 bullets of every type of bullet, and you know, you can just kind of shoot all of the bullets at all of the things and win all of the fights. But along with this, it means that money is a lot more scarce. You're not really going to find that many bottle caps on enemies too often, like maybe one or two on the random ghoul, but it's nothing too common. You don't really want to rely on it. However, one cool thing is that ammo, the minimum cost to sell ammo is 1 cap, which means that if you say at the beginning of the game you're given a minigun and 1,300 bullets for it, I think it's 1,300, and each of these bullets sells for 1 cap. If, like me, you think that you can take out those Deathclaw and all that without the minigun, that's 1,300 caps in your pocket, because, I mean, each of the bullets is 1 cap, so you can use bullets as currency, which is pretty useful in my opinion. The next, there's a perk for every situation. You're never going to see something like, I can't do that, and then look at all the perks and say, I still can't do that. Like, there's a perk that a lot of people don't like called Aqua Boy, where the first rank of it means that you can swim through water without taking radiation, and you can breathe underwater forever. And then the second is that you don't get detected while you're underwater. And people say that this is a useless perk, because why would you want to breathe forever underwater? But I think that it's very useful, in my opinion, because, I mean, for convenience. Like, if you want to go from point A to point B without crossing a ton of bridges and, like, encountering a bunch of enemies, if you have Aqua Boy rank 1, you can just swim through the water. No enemies, no hassle, no radiation, all that stuff. There's a perk for everything. There's the Locksmith and Hacker perks to get you into different locked off areas. There's different perks to increase your damage with different weapons, add multipliers to your sneak attacks. I've seen people that have one hit killed a Deathclaw with their fists because of perks. It's very incredible. So, perks can be used for basically anything. Another thing that perk points are good for is that you can directly upgrade your special skills. So if you at the beginning of the game you only put a 4 into your agility, and there's a perk that you want that unlocks at 5 agility, you'd have to be like, oh no, I can't get that perk, I messed up. Oh well. You can just put a point of your perk points, rather than buying an actual perk, you can put a point into your agility tree and expand that. I did a little bit of calculations because I thought I might be fun to do this one day, but if you wanted to make a character where, without buying any perks, you got all of your special stats up to 10, and I had 10 all across the board, you would get it to level 44, so it would take a little bit of time. Some weapons are poorly balanced in general against each other. For example, the Walking Cane is a melee weapon, and it is terrible. It does a base of like 13 damage, and it scales at the lowest with other melee weapons, with like your strength. Like if you have higher strength, it's gonna scale a lot lower. Like I think it might be 1 damage per point of strength. So if you have 10 strength, it's only gonna do 23 damage, which isn't very good for working at 10 strength. You could probably get more damage out of a combat knife at that level. So the next point is that different factions, siding with them can get you different upgrades. For example, the jetpack on your power armor. The most fun thing in this game, hands down. That's a lie, probably, but it's just really fun, not gonna lie. But you get this for free. Normally it would take you 4 levels of the armor perk and 4 levels of the science perk, which would take a really long time to get. Even on my 75 plus hour character, I don't have those. You get it for free if you side with the Brotherhood. If you side with the Minutemen, you unlock an awesome settlement called the Castle, which is, you guessed it, a freaking castle. Yes, you get a castle, and you can get like artillery, and you can throw smoke, and then it's like, oh look, smoke, and it's like, let's throw gigantic bombs at it. You just blow everything up and win everything. So, you get pretty cool stuff. So, another thing is that with the companions, you have companion affinity. I was talking about romancing, but you can also just become like good friends with someone. For example, Mutant Strong, you can't romance that. It's a super mutant. Think about it. Like, I mean, like, really, take a moment and think about it. So when you do become best friends with Strong, not romancing, you've already thought about that. No. But once you get to become a good friend with him, you get like a sort of faux nerd rage perk that he gives you, where when you start to get lower health, you get higher damage output, higher damage resistance. Different companions give you different cool perks like that, so you have an incentive to travel with certain companions. Next is that the sound design in this game is awesome. Weapons, like the 10mm pistols, sound punchy and loud like they should. Suppressed weapons sound really quiet like they should. Everything just sounds right to me. I've never seen anything in this game other than the plasma weapons, which are terrible in general in this game for some reason, that I look at and I'm just like, that does not sound like it should sound. Everything else is just like, yo, this is just like sound heaven. Population me. Especially if you have headphones. I don't have headphones because I'm broken, because I'm bad, but it's just incredible sound design tonight. And then the next two are kind of similar with each other. First is that the character is voice acted. While this does have some restrictions, like the watered-down dialogue we talked about earlier, having the character, when you press a button to say something, actually say it. Have your character, you see your character in a sort of cutscene format, saying what you wanted him to say, or her to say. Genders. You really understand, like, that your character is a character. Like, you know, like, you're not just like, okay, I'm just a person walking around with a gun. Like, when your person actually says different things, you realize, okay, this person is actually, like, on the lookout for his or her son. Like, they really care about this. They really get, like, the sense of, like, for me, it kind of immerses me in the story more. Others may not agree, but for me, that's a positive point. And the next, which is something that so many people love, and that is that the companion Codsworth can say your name. You can look up a list of all the names you can say. He has a list of hundreds of names, and if you type those in as your character name, rather than saying sir or ma'am, like you normally would if you didn't have one of those names, he will say Mr. or Mrs. whatever your name is. For example, if you named your character Andy, Codsworth would walk out and he would say Mr. Andy, and you're like, what? Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's probably the best thing ever. But with all of this said and done, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to check the game's power level. This game's power level is 26,000!